Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado was pretty ruthlessly sidelined by US President Donald Trump following his abduction of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro earlier this month. Instead, Trump put Maduro's deputy, Delcy Rodriguez, in charge, effectively keeping most of the Maduro regime in place. Now, though, Machado appears to have given Trump the one thing he's alleged to really want.
I presented the President of the United States the medal of the Nobel Peace Prize, and I told him this, listen to this. 200 years ago, General Lafayette gave Simón Bolívar a medal with George Washington's face on it. Bolívar since then kept that medal for the rest of his life. Actually, when you see his portraits, you can see the medal there. And it was given by General Lafayette as a sign of the brotherhood between the United States, the people of the United States and the people of Venezuela in their fight for freedom against tyranny. And 200 years in history, the people of Bolívar are giving back to the heir of Washington a medal, in this case, the medal of the Nobel Peace Prize, as a recognition for his unique commitment with our freedom.
So that was her explaining why she gave Donald Trump the Peace Prize. He has accepted it. He didn't think it was too low to accept a second-hand Nobel Peace Prize by someone who is desperate for a favor, essentially, which is to put her in charge of Venezuela. You can see her logic. You know, there was some reporting saying the reason that Machado didn't get put in charge of Venezuela was because Trump was upset that she'd accepted the Peace Prize in the first place. I mean, it seems to me more plausible that he thought that Delcy Rodriguez was the person who could keep the show on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure he's very happy to have that Nobel Peace Prize medal, and that's important because the Nobel Committee has said you obviously can't transfer the prize, but you can give the trinket away. He's very happy to accept the trinket. But yeah, the real reason that he preferred Rodriguez is a really simple one. Marco Rubio, I think it was, said that the US will control Venezuela's oil output indefinitely, and you can't control that output if you have to go through a democratic process, installing a new government, getting rid of a regime that already exists, as well as all of the kind of street militias that they have in various cities in Venezuela, connected to the regime. All of that needs to stay in place if you're going to successfully and smoothly transition your way into getting that oil. So yeah, Machado is like, he knows who Delcy Rodriguez is, and he knows that she's terrified and depends on him for her survival. He doesn't really know who Machado is, except for an incredibly popular figure, which is the last thing you want in Venezuela if you're trying to take over its production of oil.
And Delcy Rodriguez she was known to be the slightly more competent when it comes to economic management than Maduro. So she had partly... people saying she's neoliberal. I mean, she had partly done a bit of privatization by stealth of the oil companies, but that had dramatically increased oil production because the state had collapsed under Maduro. And if you've got a collapsed state, then having that state control the oil doesn't actually work very well. Obviously, the Venezuelan people should get the profits. They should get the rents from it. But the state-run oil company had sort of ceased to function very effectively. 2 new polls have come out of Venezuela. Now, I'm going to sort of introduce this by saying I'm never quite sure how much to trust a poll from a foreign country when I haven't heard of the company doing it. But they've been published in Bloomberg and The Economist, and they're quite striking. They've been widely shared on social media for obvious reasons. And this is The Economist. And they've polled 600 Venezuelans. They say it's a representative sample in terms of age and sex. So only those 2 things. But they've found, according to this poll, it was on an app, that 50% of Venezuelans support the United States capture of Nicolas Maduro, and only about 12% oppose it, and the rest are somewhere in the middle. Bloomberg have also partnered with a pollster. I think they had polled slightly more people, which suggests that a majority of Venezuelans want Machado to leave their country. So this is the Bloomberg poll. They say 51% of people want Machado, or 51% of Venezuelans want Machado to lead the country. Only 13% want Delcy Rodriguez. Stephen, I thought it was interesting to show. I don't find it entirely implausible. I mean, Venezuela has been a fairly terrible place to live for a very long time. Maduro was no longer a democratically elected leader. They wanted rid of him, and he was staying in post. So it's not entirely surprising that they would welcome his ousting and want the opposition. I mean, it was Maria Machado's candidate who did win the election in 2024. That's what's suggested by basically all the international observers, including the Carter Foundation. At the same time, polling 600 people on an app, you've only sort of said it's representative in terms of age and gender. If there's a particular class of Venezuelans, for example, who use that app, that could easily skew that. What do you make of this? How seriously do you think we should take this idea that Venezuelans are welcoming Trump's intervention?
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all. And I think these two polls are interesting because you can compare it to the case with Iran as well, right? It wouldn't surprise me at all if a lot of Iranians want the end of the regime in Iran because it's repressive, they're impoverished. Same in Venezuela.
Much less impoverished than in Venezuela, to be honest.
Much less impoverished, but still in the last few months, the economy has particularly dived. But it's the distance between the first poll, which is what everybody wants, which is an end to something, and the second poll, which is what they'd like, which I think people on the left have been most concerned about with the two interventions, or potential intervention in Iran and the actual intervention in Venezuela, which is that you may get the kind of end of something that people may genuinely want on a large scale, which is something that, again, on the left we should support, that, okay, they want the end of something, that thing has not been very good for them. But what they won't get is the second thing, the outcome that they want. In this case, we've already seen that Trump is not. It doesn't look like he's going to give Machado a chance to run the country. And in the Iranian case, it looks like the Shah. We have no idea what Iranians want in Iran. We know what plenty of them outside of Iran want, but we don't know what Iranians in Iran want. And it doesn't look like it looks like it might be what would be imposed going forward. So I think that the first poll doesn't surprise me at all in the Venezuelan case. The second poll doesn't surprise me at all because, as you say, she probably won the last election.
It was her candidate because she was
her candidate.
She was blocked from standing in the election, but the guy who she supported,
I can't remember his name, but the one who's
I think Edmundo Gonzalez, if I've got the right person.
But it's the gap between the two, the realization of the two, which is what the left is most concerned about, I think, with in both cases, and as they should rightly be concerned about, and as Venezuelans and Iranians should be concerned about as well. But I can see in their desperation to end something, they're not really thinking about.
Well, in Venezuela, so I've this afternoon I've done an hour interview with Tamir Porras, who was Maduro's chief of staff between 2007 and 2013 when he was in the foreign ministry. So that's going to be out tomorrow. So if you're thinking we're being overly negative about Venezuela, you can look at that. It's really, really, really interesting conversation. But yeah, I mean, I just think with Venezuela, because when Saddam Hussein was overthrown, Iraq, I mean, it was poor because of the sanctions, but it was fairly stable, and then it falls into complete civil war. Venezuela, it was already the biggest economic collapse outside of peacetime, and 1 in 5 people had left, which is, it's only Syria beats that as a proportion of people who have left. So I can see why they might think it can't get much worse.
Sure.
Maybe it can. I mean, obviously, if there's a civil war, it will get worse.
It can always get worse.
But hopefully it won't.
I mean, hopefully it won't, but it's very rare that there's an intervention from the outside, the deposing of a head of state, or a kind of that results in a better situation anytime soon. So I don't know. We'll have to see how it spins out. But like I said, I don't blame those Venezuelans who did want Maduro gone. I think they will come to regret that it was done in this way and not done, as it were, internally themselves.
But they would have said that they tried internally, right? They tried internally. There was a lot of repression. It's like they couldn't vote him out. Yeah. But obviously, I mean, I think we've had a lot of examples of American presidents doing regime change, and it hasn't generally gone very well. So I would not be surprised if this went.
I mean, I'm not saying that
very badly.
revolution is easy. I just want to be clear. I'm saying revolution is very difficult, but internal revolutions are generally a better, more stable way in which to get rid of these strongmen leaders.
The Dark Knight Return says, has Michael even heard of the maximum pressure campaign on Venezuela? Yes, there were lots of sanctions put on Venezuela, which made the situation much, much worse. It was also the case that Hugo Chavez was borrowing money even at the height of the oil cycle, right? So that the moment the oil price collapsed, even without sanctions, they were quite screwed.
I just wanted to say something about, again, it's true in the Venezuelan case, it's true in the Iranian case as well. Those sanctions did exist, and they were and do exist in Iran, totally impoverishing in many ways, definitely denuding people's standards of living. But it's also the case that in both of those governments, people became very rich out of it. One of the great economic turns of the last 20 or 30 years in Iran is that there's been a massive amount of privatization, and the privatization of various parts of the country is owned by members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. So there's been a transfer of wealth from like the merchant class to like the military class in that country. Same in Venezuela, as you said, Rodriguez, a little bit of privatization, but that money was not going to Venezuelan people, but it was certainly going somewhere.
Well, that was actually her bringing in international companies to sort of manage the oil. So I don't think that's where the corruption was more in handing out contracts to cronies, and then also the currency controls. The big issue in terms of corruption was that you could get from the state dollars quite cheap, but on the black market, you could sell them for so many bolivars. So if you had government connections or if you had sort of a contract as an importer, you can swap your bolivars for loads of dollars and then sell those dollars for loads of bolivars, and you make a huge amount of money from doing absolutely nothing.